Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Rally webinar on using data to take the guesswork out of recruitment advertising. I'm Sylvia with Rally Recruitment Marketing, and I'm so glad that you're joining us today. I know that all of you in the Rally community are going through tremendous recruiting challenges right now, and so this webinar is designed to bring you some new strategies that you can put to use right away. Today's webinar is being sponsored by Appcast, and I want to thank them for their partnership and their support of the Rally Recruitment Marketing community and helping us to bring educational webinars like these to you. All right, so let me introduce today's speaker. So with me today is Kyle Leigh from Appcast. Hi, Kyle.
Hello, hello. Yes, I'm wearing my Appcast sweater so that people don't get confused.
Oh man, I need to be wearing my Rally merch. Okay. Thank you so much for being here today. This is a really great topic. Our community really loves anything to do with data to help them build a business case, help them make better decisions. So I know you've got some great content coming up to share with us, but why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your role at Appcast and also introduce Appcast for those who may not know about the company.
Yeah, sure. So, a little bit about Appcast. Appcast has been in the recruitment marketing, the recruitment advertising space for about 8 years. And really, what we focus on is really automating the job advertising process using software and data. I've been in the space for about, a little over 10 years now, but primarily focusing on what we call programmatic job advertising for 7 years at various organizations. So really my role is, I work with customers of all sizes, all verticals, to help them build that business case to move towards this model, as well as just providing insights with how to improve their internal practices, be it job content, be it improving their apply processes, what have you. So that's really my role at Appcast. Really, like I was saying, what we do as a company is we look to automate the job advertising process. Over the last 8 years from doing this, we have powered about just under 2 billion applications. And really all that says is that we've collected a lot of data in terms of how jobs perform, in terms of how job seekers receive those jobs and how they apply to them, where job seekers are finding these jobs in the first place. So we're going to share some of that data today, but that's just a little bit about us.
Awesome. All right. And before we hear some of your content, let me just introduce Rally to those who may be new to our webinars. So Rally Recruitment Marketing is the largest community for talent acquisition, recruitment marketing, employer branding professionals to learn about all these new social and digital strategies that will help us attract and recruit talent. So you might have registered for this webinar on our community site, which is at rallyrecruitmentmarketing.com. Lots of resources there for you, and we do regular webinars. So I really encourage you to continue with your education and learning about recruitment marketing and employer branding. And we have our next Rally Forward virtual conference coming up on May 11th. I can't believe it's just a little bit over 2 months away. But please join the Rally. So you can go to rallyforward.com and register for the event coming up in May. And we also produce the Rally Awards, and we just wrapped up nominations for this season, but we'll be announcing soon the winners probably sometime in April. And if you'd like, you can always join into the live ceremony. It's always a really uplifting event. And we recently launched a new analytics and benchmarking tool for the Rally Recruitment Marketing community to help you measure candidate engagement with your recruitment marketing strategy. So here's what you're going to learn today from Kyle. We're going to cover a 2021 retrospective of kind of what's been happening in the talent market, helping you understand your KPIs, which is a really important topic in recruitment marketing. I don't think we spend enough time really understanding how should we be measured and what's the best way to measure our effectiveness. And then some strategies on how you can improve your jobs content, because we know that you're spending a lot right now on recruiting, and particularly on recruitment advertising. And there's some pro tips that Kyle is going to recommend to you that can help you improve your budget. And then some strategies for how to cast a wider and smarter net to attract the talent that you need right now. And we will leave a few minutes at the end for some live Q&A. Kyle is ready to answer any of the questions that you have about programmatic job advertising, about the benchmark data that you're going to hear about today, and just in general job advertising strategies. And if you have any questions for Kyle, you can enter them in the Zoom Q&A button that's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And Aaron from the Rally team is in the background, and he's there on chat. So if you need any assistance during the webinar, you can just send a chat and he'll be there to help you. So Kyle, before we get started, I know you're going to dazzle us with a lot of data today, which is great. But not everyone may be familiar with some of the terminology that you're going to use. So can you just break down some of the key terms before we dive into the content?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of these will be familiar, right? But in case they are, CPC. That's just how much it costs for each click for someone to land on one of your jobs. So if you're doing a performance advertising model, say with Indeed, you should be pretty familiar with this. CPA is cost per applicant. So this is just the cost of how much it takes in terms of advertising spend to receive a completed application inside of your ATS, your CRM, landing page, what have you. Apply rate is how many clicks to a job it takes for someone to convert to an application. So, we're going to be looking at this pretty heavily in terms of areas where we can actually, help improve some of your performance. But all these things come down to CPH, what your cost per hire is. Just like CPC and CPA, where we're measuring against spend, this is advertising spend, how much it takes in advertising dollars to receive a single hire.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thanks for level setting us on some of the terminology that you're going to be using. So let's start out by looking at 2021, just, in the months leading up to everything that we're facing right now. What was job advertising performance going, towards the end of the year?
Performance was pretty much going crazy. And we're going to jump into this here in a little bit, but we just wanted to have like a quick retrospective of what the heck went on last year, because it was pretty crazy. It was really one of the most challenging years for recruiters, recruitment marketers that we've seen in recent history. Yeah, this is really what we're looking at first. And much of this is probably going to resonate with you here on the webinar. Towards the end of the last year, and this is actually looking through February 1st of 2022, there are 4.6 million more jobs than unemployed persons. So think about that for a second. What this really means is that there is a lot more competition in terms of getting your ads in front of the right people than there was in the past. Okay, Lori.
All right. I was just writing down that 4.6 million number. I mean, if you're trying to help your boss and your stakeholders understand why it is so difficult to recruit right now, that is a number you should remember. 4.6 million more jobs than unemployed people. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then the cost of advertising, naturally, because there's so much more competition, that has skyrocketed as well. The cost for a click to one of your jobs skyrocketed by 54%. Whereas in 2020, those rates only increased 11%. So really, the reason why this has skyrocketed is, again, competition, the explosion of demand for workers.
So hopefully people have increased their budget by 54% going into 2022, or at least they had some increase in budget in order to be able to compete, for job advertising, real estate.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem with all of this is that really apply rates. So people who were actually applying to jobs, it only rose 3% last year, right? So despite the amount of unemployment and people coming back to the workforce, apply rates only increased 3%. So what that means is that job seekers were very, very choosy last year, very, very picky in terms of which jobs they would actually want to apply for.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm sure everyone who's watching this right now is nodding their head saying, yes, Kyle, we feel that.
Right. And so, if CPC rates are going up and if the apply rate is only going up marginally, then naturally your cost per application is going to go up. And what we saw was that indeed happened, and it went up by 43%, which I find is pretty fascinating. So, previously back in January of 2020, we were hovering around a $15, $18 cost per application across all jobs. By the end of last year, we were at about 28%. So, when you think about how much it's going to cost in order to get an applicant for your job, factor this in. And we'll kind of, show you here in a couple slides, what that really means in terms of if you have the exact same number of people that you've had to apply or hire for, what that macro change in cost really looks like.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So these are great charts. And as I said, you'll all get a copy of these slides so that you have the charts. So let's look at what do we need to do moving forward? What are your recommendations for the Raleigh community?
Yeah, you can do two things, really. You can increase your budget or you can make your job content, your apply processes more efficient. A lot of employers, a lot of advertisers are doing both. Mm-hmm. And so, to really understand that, you need to know your existing KPIs. You need to know your existing conversion rates. You need to know exactly how things are converting on your end today.
Yeah, we call this a baseline, getting your baseline, especially if you're in a new role. So a lot of people in our space have been moving into new jobs, and get that baseline when you get in there, and then you can be able to measure your impact in the coming quarters.
Yeah, and so to create that baseline, what we recommend is looking at your cost per apply rates, looking at your application conversion rates, your apply rate, if you will, as well as what your cost per hire is. And again, this cost per hire is defined by how much advertising dollars you spend to make that hire versus industry averages. And we'll show you some of those averages here in a little bit.
Okay.
I always recommend that everyone should apply for your own jobs. Apply from a desktop, apply from your iPhone. You need to understand where the friction comes from in the apply process. If somebody is commuting to work, or if they just do not have enough time to go through a 45-minute application, especially if they find hiccups on their phone, that's really going to affect your conversion rates. So how long does the apply process take from start to finish? How many questions do you ask? Are there questions in the apply process that you really just do not need to know the answers for, at least at that first interaction with the candidate? And how difficult is it to, again, if somebody's commuting, say on a bus or on a train, and they're trying to apply for a job on their phone, how much more difficult is that process? For example, does that person have to upload a resume? More times than not, that person might not have a resume stored on their phone. So think about factors like that. Again, when we're asking these questions, how necessary are they? Can you ask some of these questions a little bit further down in the hiring funnel, versus having them right there in that first interaction, in that first piece of the job application?
Mhm. And just also to know like what the drop off is, if you're spending all this money on advertising, you're spending money on a click, and then you're trying to get, people to apply, like what is that gap between someone clicking and someone applying? And as Kyle is recommending, if your budget hasn't increased significantly, what can you do to increase the apply rate? And it might be reducing the time that it takes that you're asking someone to apply. All right, very important stuff.
And then take all those metrics, like I was saying, and compare it to industry benchmarks. So for attendees after this call, we're actually going to include Appcast 2022 benchmark report, to where we've compiled all this data in terms of apply rates across mobile and desktop devices, what the cost per hire is across industries. What you're seeing right here, this is actually part of that report, and it's showing you for various industries the top 3 sources of candidates. So think, top job boards, and how that cost per hire varies. So you'll have an idea here in terms of, exactly where you stand.
Yeah, this report is such a great resource, Kyle. I know you guys at Appcast have been producing this for a while. I think this is like the definitive resource to understand what is the cost of job advertising. And I love that you guys break it out by industry so people can get that benchmark. It's not just generic information, but it could be really specific to them. So yeah, everyone who's registered for the webinar, the folks from Appcast will follow up and we'll send you a copy of this super valuable report.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to put it right here in the chat in case people are like, really, really, really want to see it right now. So
awesome.
it's
Thank
in the
you.
chat. There you go. So what we're looking at here is, okay, if you don't change, once you have a baseline of your KPIs, if you didn't change anything in terms of trying to get more candidates to convert, just the change in cost per apply alone, CPA alone, you in 2020 to make 500 hires. Now we're assuming that each hire requires 20 applicants, right? So each and every job, you need 20 applicants to make a hire, and you have 500 hires to make. Previously in 2020, you would needed to have a budget of around 200,000. In 2021, that went up to $285,000. And in 2022, we only expect the cost per apply rates to increase at least in the short term.
Wow. Okay. All right. So everyone probably has I'm going to guess many people have increased their budget because they already have been experiencing that the cost per hire is going up. But you've got some recommendations to help make that budget stretch. So what are some things that they can do to improve their job ad content?
Yeah, essentially it's improve your job ad content. Look at each and every area where you can improve it. So we have some areas here.
Okay.
Think about how long your job titles are. What we typically see is the more words that you have in the job title, the fewer clicks to that job you receive. By far, job titles with 1 to 3 words. So think of basic keywords, basic job title keywords. They receive the most clicks. More clicks typically results in more people applying, more people converting.
Are there really like a lot of job ads that have 1 word?
Housekeeper.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think another tip I've heard from some folks at Appcast is to make sure that you're using like a name for the job that people are searching for, not just making up things that people like to call it internally. Yes.
My favorite one from a couple of weeks ago was a guinea pig handler for a pet store.
Yeah. That's not going to help right now.
Right. This one I found pretty interesting. Include benefits in your job descriptions. When we looked at this data, About half of all the job ads in our industry made no mention of benefits in the description at all. About 3 benefits seems to be the sweet spot when you include in the description. But job ads that included 1 or more benefits had an apply rate that was 22% higher than ones that didn't. So this is a very simple way to improve your conversion rates. Again, when we say improve your conversion rates, it means that more people, when they click on your ad, are converting, which lowers your cost per apply.
Mm-hmm. This is great, really actionable. People can do this right away.
This is another area when you're talking about benefits. Some things that you might not think is a benefit are like work from home. So if workers are able to work remote, including that in the job ads, you can see this right here in the chart on the right, it improves your apply rate. And again, that lowers your cost per application.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's just one example.
Yeah, this is great too.
Consider when you're posting your jobs, when you're advertising your jobs. When people apply, so when they're going on to job boards, they're clicking on jobs and then applying, it's cyclical throughout the week. What we typically see are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are the best days to post jobs because you're going to get a lot more applies on those days versus posting something towards the end of the week or even on a weekend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There you go. Another thing, get out at the beginning of the week.
And as always, test, and test. Start making these changes, do A/B tests, track it over time. Do not expect immediate results within a couple of days. These are tests that you need to run for several weeks, if not months. But in short, shorten your job titles, simplify your application process, include more benefits, and post on different days of the week.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to testing, Kyle, does Appcast's platform enable practitioners to do this testing more easily, to sort of get to the optimization faster?
That's the beauty of running job advertising through a solution like Appcast, is that we can measure these. We can measure them at a very macro level and a very micro level in terms of looking at how categories of jobs are performing differently with these tests, or very, very specifically individual jobs. So yes, that is a huge benefit because it's really hard to do this outside of using a solution like ours.
Yeah, we know testing is so important, but it can be a really manual process. So anything that can automate it for us to get to that optimized state faster, I think is great. So, okay, with the talent shortage, how can programmatic help employers reach more qualified candidates? I think, they need quantity, but they also need quality.
Yeah, with solutions like ours, we can help cast a wider, but not just a wider, but a smarter net. And I'll explain how that's done on the next slides here. Really, we need to transition away from the old era of job advertising, which is traditionally has been very human driven. A lot of recruiters or hiring managers figuring out which jobs need to be advertised by manually going inside the ATS, figuring out which jobs don't have enough candidates, and then manually saying, okay, I want to advertise this job on this job board, and this job board. Getting an understanding of where quality is coming from is very difficult because you're trying to pull reporting from many disparate sources. You're trying to pull a report from job boards and then try to marry that with what is being reported into the ATS using some pivot table magic, or as I call pivot table hell. So it's really, really difficult. This is a problem because there's a lot of guesswork going on in terms of which jobs need to be advertised, where to put them. That results in wasted spend. And ultimately, it just doesn't produce enough qualified candidates. Mm-hmm. Whereas the new era is using data and software, i.e. programmatic job advertising. This is a data-driven process to where the machines and human expertise are really automating this entire process. The solutions are automatically looking inside of the ATS. They're proactively identifying which jobs need to be advertised before they're a problem. Data is determining where those jobs are being advertised. based upon where the data set has seen hireable candidates for similar positions at similar locations in the past. So gone is the guesswork of, should I use this job board? Should I use that job board? And how much should I pay? All of that is figured out by the solution. This results in a lower cost per hire, typically a reduced time to fill as well. You're getting more qualified candidates, and really you're getting access to this actionable data, right? Since we're doing all these A/B tests, and you're getting an understanding of how jobs are performing, you can actually action from those. This is how, all those recommendations that I had in the previous slides, if we weren't doing this, we wouldn't have that data to action upon. So that's how we're able to provide those insights here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. And how programmatic solutions typically work with Appcast in particular is really you as an employer, you provide your budget goals, how many folks you need to hire, and Appcast solutions do the rest. And what we do is we're putting qualified candidates into your pipeline. Since we are tracking down to the hire, we know that they're qualified applicants, right? And all that you and your teams have to do is recruit, interview, and eventually hire. With a programmatic solution, especially ours, where the jobs go out to is everywhere. We're effectively looking at 100% of the addressable job seeker audience. So there's about 10,000 different sites out there. And just based upon where the data set says to advertise those jobs on, we're advertising on exactly the sites that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great. Well, I think that was an excellent Rally how-to webinar to help us understand how to do our job advertising strategy based on data with some actual benchmarks that you all have provided, and a little bit about using programmatic, which is really a database driven strategy. If someone wants to learn more about Appcast or the benchmark data that you guys have available, what's a good place for them to start?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can go to our website where we have just a vast library of resources. And we're always happy to take a call to kind of explain these in greater detail as well.
Yeah, I have a feeling once people get a copy of the report that they might have some specific information, questions related to their own industry and the kind of job functions that they're recruiting for. So thank you for being a resource for all of us.
That's what we're here for. That's our jobs.
If anyone wants to stick around, Kyle is here and can answer some of your questions. So let's see if we've got questions coming through. We've got lots of people saying great presentation. So thank you very, very much, Kyle. Awesome. All right. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions that have come in. So let's address those. So, okay. So one is, what do you recommend for people if they don't have historical benchmark data? Like, first of all, where do they even get that data? I would even ask. And then, where do they go from there?
Yeah, what you really need to do is you need to look inside of your ATS. A lot of applicant tracking systems will have metrics on these areas. But then you also have to pull performance reports from the sites that you are advertising to. A lot of times that data is just bad, right? It's very difficult to pull. It might not be accurate. So what Appcast actually does as a service is we can help figure out, what those baselines, what those benchmarks should be based upon what we're seeing inside of the industry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And someone else is asking, you talked about casting a wider net and just like, shifting over to programmatic and kind of letting the machines, take control. How can they be sure of the quality of candidates when their jobs are sort of going to all these places and they don't have control over the job boards?
Yeah. With most applicant tracking systems, we can track down to the hire inside of our solutions. So we'll know, as soon as you all start making those hires and they get reported back to the system, where those hires are coming from. And over time, the solution just gets smarter and smarter and smarter with, exactly where those jobs are going.
Okay. Yes, the machines learn. Okay, and one final question. Someone's asking, do you really see a lot of job titles with 13 plus words? Is that like a very common thing that employers are doing?
It's not terribly common, but in some industries where we're putting in, exact sign-on bonuses, how much they're getting paid per mile, that does happen. So, we obviously don't recommend it, but we do see it.
Yeah, they're kind of keyword stuffing, it sounds like. Yeah,
Yeah,
into the job title and not recommended. The data shows it's not effective.
right.
All right, great. So the next rally webinar is happening on March 10th, where you guys can learn about employee generated content that can attract top talent. So another strategy that you can use right now. And we also have available on rallyrecruitmentmarketing.com a great new resource on high volume hiring with some specific strategies that you can use to overcome all the recruiting challenges that come with high volume hiring with some employer examples. So you can go to inside.co, which is INSDE, just one I, .co/6x91. And that's a short link that will take you right to that new resource that's available on our resource center. So thank you again, Kyle. This was fantastic. I really, really appreciate all the expertise that you shared with us today.
No, thank you. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye-bye.